Today's headlines: a drone attack in Malazat in the southern zone of Tigray claims the lives of 23 civilians and heavily injures more than 8. Another airstrike in Koram kills 15 civilians, attacking a church and hospital in the small town. Hello and welcome to our viewers who are watching us live on your screens, and also you can follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook and YouTube. This is Tigray Mass Media Agency. I'm La'alam Techana with today's news. Here are the details. A drone attack in Malazat, a town bordering the Afar region a mere 20 kilometers from Maqala, was hit by airstrike on Monday morning, resulting in the death of 23 civilians and injury of more than 8. The attack hit a minibus transporting civilians and has resulted in the destruction of a civilian and a public infrastructure. This is just one of 12 airstrikes to hit Maqala and the surrounding district of Anderta that has so far resulted in the death of 94 civilians and close to 300 injured. The event that took place yesterday has become the norm in Tigray. Civilians going about their ordinary days are routinely bombarded by airstrikes and families devastated. Another airstrike was conducted in Koram in the southern zone of Tigray, attacking a church and hospital in the small town. For more, Solomon Taklai reports.
It's been 2 months since the Ethiopian National Defense Forces started to attack highly populated towns and cities across Tigray, leading to the death of over 100 civilians and the injury of many more, including children and the elderly. In its most recent airstrike, Ethiopian forces would launch an attack on a marketplace and a church in the city of Koram, just 160 kilometers from Maqala, killing 15 civilians and injuring several more.
I saw the drone fire 6 bombs at St. Mary Church alone. Before we even finished picking up the bodies from the first attack, another round of attacks had hit in an area called Marab, a technical college, and then a hospital. I saw this with my own eyes.
I was on my way out from the church when the drone suddenly started bombing the area. I have injured my leg and my abdomen. I'm glad that I'm alive. Many have lost their lives because of the airstrike.
It was a drone that hit the area. I was at home when I heard the explosion. I was so startled. I ran outside. The glasses were all shattered. Children were hit by the airstrike and taken to the hospital.
Healthcare workers at Koram Hospital explained the devastation caused by the airstrikes that has devastated the small town and its residents.
Civilians are being targeted, including staff of the hospital. The injuries they are coming in with are so severe. Some have their limbs amputated and others came with severe bone fractures. We don't know if they can make it out alive. The hospital was struck and as a result, 5 of our staff have been injured and 1 dead. Abiy Ahmed's airstrikes targeted churches, health institutions, schools and markets.
The Ethiopian Air Force has conducted several airstrikes in the past week alone, killing 48 civilians and injuring well over 100 in the small town of Alamata in the southern zone of Tigray.
Tigray's health system has been devastated by the systematic attack on its infrastructure and 6-month-long siege that has all but depleted stocks of medical supplies, which means health workers have very little by which they can treat casualties of the repeated aerial bombardments. The town of Alamata has lost 48 of its residents this past week, while 86 others remain in dire conditions. Abraha Gabriel reports.
This little girl is a 6-year-old child who was suddenly stricken by aerial bombardment perpetrated by the Ethiopian government on open market at Alamata town, southern Tigray, on 17 December 2021. She was passing by the market area from church with her grandmother.
She was on her way back home from church when she was stricken by drone attack around the market. There was also another baby on my back. This one is my 3rd child. The older one died soon, and this one is wounded.
The Ethiopian government has perpetrated aerial attack using drones for 3 consecutive days, beginning from 16th December last week targeting densely populated areas, open market, streets, avenues and private buildings in the entire town of Alamata. Survivors of the bombardment and their family members said the aerial attacks were executed while the residents were carrying out their daily routines.
The place is where many people gather. It's a business center. The attack was carried out there. I didn't recognize the magnitude of the attack at first, but I learned later that almost everyone there was attacked by the airstrike.
I went to the market. It was my first time to go out to the market. We didn't stay long at the market when we were stricken by the bombardment. We were 3 of us, my husband, my daughter and I. My husband and my daughter have got injured. As you can see, I'm also badly injured.
You see, they are bombarding innocent civilians because they are cowardly. They are killing and injuring civilians who make their living by their daily labor. Bombarding such civilian citizens is nonsense.
Dr. Hairslase Woldew is the medical director of Alamata General Hospital. He says the bombardments have been perpetrated at different parts of the town and they have victimized many people, including children, women and elderly people.
Most of the casualties are from the aerial attack conducted at the open market of the town. The bombardments landed at different parts of the town, but the attack on the market caused the worst loss. You cannot guess who could gather at a marketplace. There were people of all ages and gender, children, women, men and elderlies.
The aerial attacks are preceded by complete blockade which prevented entry of medicine, food and other essentials to Tigray. As a result, health workers at Alamata General Hospital said they are unable to save the lives of the injured ones as the hospital has run out of medicine and medical equipment to perform simple procedures.
The critical case at this movement itself is affected by shortage of medicine. Casualties who arrive at our hospital alive are dying as our effort to save their lives remains unsuccessful due to lack of medicine and medical equipment. This means deaths from airstrikes are being reinforced by shortage of medicine, which has made the already dire situation even worse.
We are using our bare hands to treat the casualties here because we couldn't get medical equipment, including gloves. We are desperate to save the lives of injured ones at the hospital, but it's beyond our control. It's so pity to see people dying because of shortage of food and medicine, but unfortunately, this is what is happening in this hospital.
It is to be recalled that the government of Ethiopia has continued perpetrating aerial bombardments using drones and jets at different towns and villages across Tigray, including Mekelle, for more than a month now. And hundreds of civilians have died so far and many have been injured.
On Sunday, President Jazeera sent an open letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres reiterating his government's commitment to a peaceful resolution to the conflict in Ethiopia. The president also warned that the international community should not let another opportunity for peace pass without decisive action, proposing an immediate cessation of hostilities followed by negotiations. For more, Abil Zagabo.
President Jazeera sent an open letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Sunday to reiterate his government's readiness for a peaceful resolution to the conflict in Ethiopia. The president also said that the first political objective of the people of Tigray is to free themselves from genocidal assault that has taken the form of occupation of Tigray's territory and gross violation of human rights. The president said that the international community has so far failed in its obligation to protect civilians from the crimes of genocide, crime against humanity, and war crimes, but that his government's decision to order every unit of the Tigray army stationed outside its borders to retreat as a bold act and can be decisive in opening for peace. The president warned that the Ethiopian coalition and weaponry provided by other international actors are threatening to intensify another round of genocidal assault, and thus the government of Tigray calls for immediate action to fulfill their responsibility to protect, including the establishment of no-fly zone for hostile flights of aircrafts and drones and imposing armed embargoes on the government of Ethiopia and Eritrea. He also said that the government and the people of Tigray trust the Secretary General and the Security Council will ensure ensure that every measure is taken to end the illegal occupations and annexation of parts of Tigray, including ethnic cleansing and other human rights abuses that are taking place in those areas. The president finally warned that the international community should not let another opportunity for peace pass without decisive action, proposing an immediate cessation of hostilities followed by negotiations.
The administrator for Eastern Zone, bordering the Eritrean border, has announced that the Eritrean forces have started moving their mechanized and motorized divisions deeper into Tigray as they prepare for a second-round invasion of the region. The administrator also highlighted that the Eritrean government has started to require Tigrayan residents of all areas still occupied by Eritrean forces to change their citizenships. For more, Miran Yamana has this for us.
Administrator for the eastern zone of Tigray, that borders along the Eritrean state, Shishai Merasa stated that the Eritrean forces are moving deeper into Tigray in an attempt to invade the region for the second time.
ሰራዊት ኤርትራ ይኹን መንግስቲ ኤርትራ ወታደራዊ ምንቅስቃሳት ብስፍሓት ይዘካይድ ዘሎ
Eritrean troops are moving deeper into Tigray through the eastern zone. They've been moving mechanized and motorized forces. They're trying to instigate conflict, although our forces prefer to avoid conflict with Eritrea at all costs and wish for a peaceful end.
The administrator also emphasized that Eritrean troops have continued to occupy territories in eastern Tigray and were forcing locals to change their citizenships, not to mention the torture and abuse of local residents since the start of the invasion in November of last year.
Places like Gulamakhada in Europe and Algada, Alitana, Aiga are still under the occupation of the Eritrean troops. Our people are suffering from the cruelties and violence perpetuated by Eritrean troops. They are suffering from socio-economic crises. On the top of that, the Eritrean troops are forcing the Tigrayans in the area to change their citizenship and telling them to leave if they choose not to. They are telling our Eritrean brothers and the troops to prepare for an invasion, the same as the Amhara expansionist groups. They are spreading false information about the Tigray army, saying it will loot their properties and kill them, and that they should be prepared to attack Tigray in advance.
The mayor also called upon international community to take decisive action to halt Eritrean government's illegal invasion.
ዳግማይ ጆኖሳይድ ኣብ ትግራይ ክፍጠር የውልን ኢሎም ናብ ተግባር ውሳነ ከኣትው ኣለዎ
The international community should take decisive actions to haunt attempts to reinvade Tigray. They should show us that the world cares that justice is served and that they are against those that attempt to commit genocide. They should show us that they stand with those that seek truth and justice.
Eritrean forces have committed numerous atrocities during their brief occupation of Tigray, including the well-documented Aksum and Mariam Dengalat massacres that resulted in the death of hundreds of Tigrayans, not to mention the systematic attack on Tigray's health systems and looting and destruction of food items.
U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price, in his briefing on Monday, appreciated the withdrawal of Tigray army from neighboring regions and called it an important stepping stone for a negotiated ceasefire. Our reporter, Haile Gabro, has more on this.
In his briefing on Monday, U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price called the recent withdrawal by Tigray army from neighboring regions back into Tigray as a positive development and opens a door for border diplomacy.
So in fact, if we do see a movement of Tigrayan forces back into Tigray, that is something we would welcome. It's something we've called for, and we hope it opens the door to broader diplomacy.
The spokesperson also reiterated that diplomacy was the only solution to the conflict and asked for full humanitarian access and into all human rights violations and a full and independent investigation into all atrocities.
We have long, as you know, urged a cessation of hostilities, including the return of TPLF forces to Tigray. We have long urged that humanitarian access I spoke to. We've long urged an end to human rights abuses and violations and for a negotiated resolution to the conflict.
In a statement on Saturday, the government of Tigray had announced the withdrawal of all its forces from the neighboring regions of Amhara and Afar in an effort to encourage dialogue and a peaceful resolution to the conflict.
The past 6 months under siege has distressed both urban and rural areas, with the blockade of all essential goods and services, including electricity, telecom, and banking particularly, affecting urban areas. Our reporters visited Quihasab city in Maqala, where local officials say over 2,700 families are at risk of urban starvation. For more, Winta Kidana.
The past 6 months under siege has devastated both urban and rural areas in Tigray. The blockade of all essential goods and services, including electricity, telecom, and banking, have particularly affected urban areas. We visited Quihasab city in Maqala, where local officials say over 2,700 families are at risk of urban starvation due to the ongoing siege.
I have twins. My children can only eat if I'm able to get some. I beg our neighbors to help us sometimes, otherwise they have nothing to eat. Even if I wanted to breastfeed them, I can't because I need food too. There is no food or medication due to the blockade. We are just waiting to die here. It's so hard. When my baby tries to suck milk, I feel nausea because I'm hungry too. I stop him during the day, but at night he can't stop crying. I feel sorry for him, but I don't have anything to feed him. I have already sold my belongings by food. Now there is nothing left for me and my children. I have already lost my son due to lack of medication, and now I am afraid I might lose this one too. I don't think my children are the only ones who are starving. Every child and mother in Tigray is suffering due to lack of food. Before the start of the war, we used to work and provide for our family, but now everyone is jobless and starving. It's getting to a point where survival is very difficult.
I believe the siege is being used to eradicate the people of Tigray. There is no way people can survive in a place with no food or medication. Abiy is using starvation as a weapon of war.
Local administrator Abraha Kasaye says there are over 10,000 residents in the district in urgent need of food assistance and medical care.
We have close to 10,000 residents in 2,700 households in the vicinity of Abraha alone at severe risk of starvation. Especially people in this area are at great risk.
Heads of households say they have nothing to offer their family and are suffering severely due to the siege. While the international community has so far failed to take assertive action, the United Nations has reported that close to 500,000 people are living in famine-like conditions, while over 5 million people are in need of emergency food assistance.
The systematic destruction of health facilities in Tigray had led to the complete collapse of Tigray's health system, but the 6-month-long siege has ensured that it will not be able to revive in the near future. The 6-month-long siege that has prevented the entry of all essential goods into Tigray, including medical supplies, has worsened the situation. Our reporters spoke with residents of Naqsaga district suffering from chronic illnesses that they say they are at risk of losing their lives. For more, Salome Taklai reports.
We are now 13 months into the war that started on November 2020. The war in Tigray has seen multiple atrocities committed on the people of Tigray, including sexual violence, extrajudicial killings, massacres, destruction of health facilities, and more. The destruction of health facilities and the almost 6 months long siege on Tigray has caused a great depletion of medical supplies, endangering the lives of a countless number of people living across the state. We visited Naqsaga, around 160 kilometers from Maqada, where residents say the lack of medical supplies has had serious consequences on their health.
It has been 9 months since we haven't been able to find any medication. We used to purchase HIV medications and share it amongst ourselves, but now there is no medication. For more than 9 months now, there hasn't been any medication. I'm suffering a lot because I can't find anything.
I have been forced to stop medications for around 6 months now. The Ethiopian and Eritrean forces have looted all that was here. There are people who even lost their lives because they cannot find medication.
The residents say that health and well-being of many is worsening due to the months-long siege that has blocked off all essential goods from coming into Tigray, including medical supplies and food aid.
I was in good health before the start of the war, but I'm in a bad condition now. We start taking medications whenever we find one, but for more than a month now, I haven't taken any at all. It's dangerous to even skip the medication, let alone stop it, but there's nothing I can do.
The director of Naqsaga Health Center, Bayru Kahsai, says that because of the looting of medical supplies by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces, many patients with chronic illnesses are facing death.
Almost all the medications in this district has been looted. There is no medical supply here at all. There are 24 types of medications that should always be in this health center. The first being vaccinations for children, but this health center hasn't had them since last February. There are no medications for epilepsy, diabetes, HIV, hypertension, and many others. A 14-year-old diabetic child had lost her life because she couldn't find her medication. We've lost 1 epileptic and 2 hypertensive patients as well.
In addition to the atrocities committed in the 8 months that the Ethiopian and Eritrean forces occupied Tigray, the almost 6 months long siege exerted by Abiy Ahmed's government is called